Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Women's Week LinkedIn Live session on the role of women leaders in driving the sustainability agenda. I'm Nikki Stones, VP of Marketing at CleanHub, and today I'm delighted to be joined by an incredible panel of women who are making real strides in sustainability, from business to policy and at the grassroots. Welcome to Dr. Audrey-Flore Ngomsik, CEO of Trianon Science Communication and President of Brussels Binder, Christina Bullock, founder of sustainable footwear brand Joyasol, and Lakshmi Menon, head of impact at CleanHub. And congratulations, Lakshmi, on your portrait this week being featured in the United Nations headquarters, no less, as part of the Women Powering the Global Goals exhibition. Very cool. Of course, big welcome to everybody listening today. We will have time for questions at the end, so please do ask them in the chat and we'll get through as many as we can. In the meantime, sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. So to start us off, maybe you can all just tell us a little bit about your role and then how you got into it. Dr. Audrey, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm a scientist of sustainable development, so I've been working on it as a researcher 20 years ago, before there was a name on it. And then as I grew, I realized that companies do not become green because it's nice. They become green because it brings money. And also, we tend to, when we are at the head of a company, we tend to forget that innovation doesn't come from the sky, it comes from the people. So when we do sustainability, we have to not forget that it's always at the intersection of people, planet, and profit, environmental, social and economic sustainability. And so I created a company with a business partner, a German man, to actually implement that in companies. So we calculate before they start how much more profitable they can be if they were more sustainable. And we make sure that environmental sustainability is used to decrease costs, and social sustainability is used to increase revenues.
Fantastic. Really looking forward to digging into that with you with this conversation as well. And how about you, Christina?
Yeah, sure. So my path to sustainability wasn't quite linear. It was sort of a slew of events where I had always cared about the environment, but it wasn't until I'm here in California and we had all those devastating wildfires pretty much in our backyard. And it wasn't until that where I kind of woke up and realized, wow, like this is really a problem. And thinking about my children's future and wanting to do something about it. And at the same time, we had a sudden death in the family that made me really pause and think about my purpose and my values in life. So it's at that point, I went back and studied sustainability and got involved with former Vice President Al Gore's Climate Reality Project, really kind of trying to understand the problems we face and potential solutions. And so it was many kind of years of like studying and connecting the dots. And with my background and working for a shoe company, I had the idea. I noticed there weren't a lot of brands that held the same values as me in terms of like sustainability, ethics, and giving back. So the light bulb kind of went off, and I had the idea to start my own thing, Joyasol, a few years ago. And so it kind of came together organically, but it has been a fun journey.
That sounds great. And I definitely recommend everyone do check out the website. I've definitely got some of the shoes in mind already that I'm going to be getting for myself. They're really lovely. And Lakshmi, how about you?
Yeah, it's so nice to like share a room with people who have had such wonderful journeys. So I really stumbled into this journey of mine right now. I was in corporate and I was working in sales, and then I decided that I need to move to the development sector with lots of different stories, which I think will take the whole hour. So then I moved to waste management. And when I moved to waste management, I think one thing that I realized is like there's a lot of need for inclusive solutions, like the people who are working on the ground. There's a lot of gap in what we see as sustainability and what really happens on the ground. So I think that was the key reason that drove me a lot on my journey. And now I'm here with CleanHub doing the same thing.
Great, thank you, and we're very lucky to have you, Lakshmi. That's for sure. Right, well, look, let's dig into it a bit more. So, when we talk about the relationship between women and the sustainability agenda, what is it we actually mean? The sustainability agenda itself is about companies making a commitment to factor in social, environmental, economic, ethical considerations into their decision making. So, effectively meaning focusing on more than just profits, but also on how your actions impact people and planet, which, of course, is great. But we are still seeing this really interesting disparity, which is, what we sort of call, what it's become known as the eco-gender gap. Women are disproportionately impacted by global challenges relating to climate change. Green products are overwhelmingly marketed to and brought by women. And while there's increasing evidence that having female directors leads to a much more environmentally friendly business operations, women are still underrepresented in leadership roles. I think it's still about 5% of CEOs are female, and about 19% of leadership team members globally. So there's still a lot of work to be done there. Audrey, I'm interested in your perspective. Why is a lack of diversity in leadership so bad for sustainability?
So if you look at what is sustainability, people need to realize that it's more than just a box. Meaning we often have our continent-centered vision of sustainability. And now with the new rules that make everybody being responsible of what happened in all the supply chain, we need to open to see what's happening there. Another thing is that when you find solution for climate change, okay, you always have to keep in mind that if you have a solution for the most invisibilized, you have a solution for everybody. So when you look at the problem, you need to be able to look at it, how can I fix it for the people that it affects the most. Mm-hmm. But because your life experience might not have you being able to do that, it's important that everybody with you have different experience to see the same problem. So when I see the three of us, and I was thinking, okay, a company comes and tell us how we have, when we do shoes, we have lots of waste and we don't know what to do with it. I'm pretty sure that Christina, Lakshmi, and myself will tackle the problem in three completely different ways. But at the end, we'll have a solution that works for everyone. You see, and that is important. That's why diversity has to be not only gender, inherent diversity, but also background. Because voilà, so in science we say when you will have, for example, you have a field that is infested by pests, some people are going to look at how to kill the pest. Some people are going to look at the speed the pests are working and maybe have an insect to catch it up and eat them, and some people are going to look at the soil. Can I put something in the soil to make the pests that don't want to get here? Okay, it's because you have those three perspectives on the problem that you will solve it. And that's why diversity, it's really important to be able to find, to mitigate climate change. Well.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I guess sort of touching on something we talked about before, actually, Audrey, which is actually sometimes people can be scared of the diversity.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
So there's lots of study that shows that when you look at a team, okay, an average, so in a company, the money comes from a quick decision making that is well done for the company. Okay, if you look at an average team, an average team will make a decision 66% of the time, well done in a time efficient way. Okay, an all male team will do it 58% of the time, and the higher the diversity, the faster it goes. So if you have a team with gender, background, ethnicity, etc., it's 87% of the time that you're going to make a good decision for your company in half the time requested by other team, right? The problem of diversity is that you're going to argue because you have different perspective. People don't think like you. You need to convince them of your solution, and then they're going to argue and tell you, no, my solution is better. So you will have to find a point where you both agree with the solution, and people are scared of fighting. But that's the point of having innovation. You need to not agree. It's the same when you hire someone, you're free to decide and two people agree. That means you're hiring someone you want to have a drink with. You're not hiring someone who's going to bring something. When you're hiring someone needs to not agree, because that means that there will be a different perspective somewhere. So that's why, because you will fight, for sure. And people are scared of that.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's very, very true. And it's that sort of disagreeing agreeably, I guess, is the dream, isn't it? So, and I think, that sort of leads us on really. It's like, I guess it's like any key initiative, right? At the end of the day, sustainability, diversity, it has to be top down in organizations, because that's the only way that this is going to build the right culture for people to be able to bring different perspectives and challenge each other. Christina, founder of a fantastic brand, Joyasol, and you've mentioned that one of the driving forces behind this was actually a belief as well that the fashion industry could do more. You'd worked in the industry before, that you could see that there was more that the fashion industry could do. How do you think that philosophy has shaped Joyasol today, and how your leadership style has actually influenced the brand's commitment to sustainability?
Sure, it's a great question. So I think when I was founding the company, I had 3 pillars that I kept going back to, where it was sustainability, ethics, and then giving back, and really trying to incorporate those, interweave that within every aspect of the business as much as possible. I think kind of what Dr. Audrey was saying, it's important to have diversity, and sustainability is nuanced. And so you have to kind of pick perspectives. You can't be everything to everybody. And I think really thinking about what my core values are in terms of sustainability and ethics and giving back and what really matters. There's many different ways to do it, but I really did some soul searching and sat down and thought, okay, for me, sustainability means buying better, fewer, so slower fashion. I think we have a really big overproduction and waste problem and plastic pollution problem. So, and developing systems around that to help with avoiding landfill. So through donations or recycling program, and making just better quality shoes that are meant to last, season after season, year after year, instead of just being tossed away after one season, like so many shoes are made. And then, in terms of my journey, it's been sustainability. I look at it more as a journey, not like an end game too. And I think that's kind of shaped my leadership, and being a little bit humble, like realizing, okay, I'm just starting out my journey, and I have X, Y, and Z that I want to accomplish, but being okay with, have to start somewhere. You can't just like go from 0 to 100. And I think so many people are really afraid of even starting the sustainability journey because they think they have to be like perfect or meet all this criteria. But I think the opposite is true, where you can just start somewhere. You have to work your way up towards bigger goals, but don't be afraid just to start and to ask for help, be humble, network, learn. I think you just have to have a curious mind. I think sustainability is ever evolving, and just come from a curious perspective and hear different perspectives, like you're saying about the diversity, and just being open-minded, but at the end of the day, doing soul searching and figuring out what matters to you in terms of how you want to look at things in sustainability.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And Dr. Audrey, surely I'd love to get your perspective on the advice that you're giving to brands just getting started. But maybe just before that, one more for you, Christina. I mean, I think so. You've got these sort of really solid kind of cultural foundations and sort of values around sustainability and ethics. How do you? I guess one of the challenges you're going to be facing now is, as you scale, how you ensure that your business model remains committed in that way. As you've got, you employ more staff and you expand, and yeah. How are you sort of thinking about that at the moment?
That is tricky, and I think it's tough to say, but I think holding true, going back to those 3 pillars, and focusing more on like better, fewer, trying to instill that within the marketing, and also working with our partners closely. In terms of trying to not overproduce. I know some brands do like pre-orders, so maybe trying to integrate that in the future just to kind of see the demand. And in terms of, I also think about it in terms of like my designs too. I'm not trying to be like the most trendy shoe. I'm trying to think about more timeless, seasonless designs that will last, year after year. And so I think that's a tricky one if in terms of scale and growing, but I think staying true, going back to kind of the why and going back to those pillars and really keeping in check that aligns. So yeah, and then giving back, I think right now I'm starting small and just giving back to a few organizations, but I'm hoping to grow that as the business grows as well.
Fantastic. That's great. And yeah, we can dig into that a bit more as well. And so, Audrey, as Christina mentioned, the challenges can be for some of the companies that are getting started. It can seem like quite an overwhelming task, really, if you just start to think about your sustainability journey. You're obviously advising a lot of businesses on optimizing their business operations and then the benefits that can be had from it. Yes. What advice do you give to companies that are starting out? How do you advise companies to approach this?
So there's two things. The first thing is, for me, giving is not sustainability. The sustainability is the way you earn your money. It's because you make systemic change in your company and you produce better and better that you are sustainable. Giving money, or it's being nice, but it's not making your business more sustainable. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the first thing. But with you, Christina, I do agree. I will tell them it's a journey. You cannot be sustainable from one day to the other, but it's an investment. So it's a way of seeing a profit that is not a KPI month to month. It's more medium term and long term. And it's a risk management tool, in fact, sustainability, because with climate change, with the natural disaster, etc., your supply chain is going to be affected. So it's really a risk management tool. And that is what I have to say. And another thing also, it's, as you were saying, Christina, you make a choice today because you believe in it and you have values that might increase the price of your product, but in 5 years, it will go back to normal. And in the meantime, you need to raise awareness to your customers and to your stakeholders. Mm-hmm. Because again, you cannot be sustainable alone. You need to involve everybody around you and inside the company. If not, it will never work.
Yeah, it's a very good point. One thing I'm quite curious as well on, Dr. Audrey, is with all the companies that you're advising and sort of talking to, do you see differences? I mean, obviously we're here today to talk about women leadership in linked to sustainability. Do you see differences when women also have a seat at the table at the organizations that you're working with, and diversity generally as well? I mean, it's not just...
definitely. So there's so now it's because I would tell you, I don't like to do generalization, but now there's actually data and scientific journal that document it. Okay, so when you have more diversity and more women in decision making, in fact, there is a tendency to think of profit in the medium and long term, and to see there's more investment in R&D, and to see in the medium and long term. So the company, in fact, or the organization decrease the CO2 emission or faster. The commitment that the company takes are actually going through. You see, so it's. I do believe that it's because of diversity, because there's more women, because there is now it's since the COP21, it's actually documented that the company that have brought more women and more diversity in decision making, in fact, decrease the CO2 emission faster. And if you want the proof, there is a ranking that is known, the Corporate Knight ranking, who actually put the 100 most sustainable companies, and they show the board, how diverse is the board, and it's completely linked.
Really, that's I mean, I'm not surprised, but equally it's good to see that supported by data as well, isn't it? For sure.
And this is why we work on that. In fact, in my company, when I say social sustainability, we only taking care of having more diversity where decisions are taken, because everything else will go from it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and certainly something as well that we talk about a lot at CleanHub. So at CleanHub, our goal is to end plastic pollution. That's what we're aiming to do, and empowering women that are working at the front lines of plastic pollution is a really key part of that. I mean, we sort of we very much believe that environmental sustainability and social change go hand in hand. Lakshmi, in waste management, sort of more generally, I mean, actually, there does tend to be more women workers than men, certainly where in the countries where we're operating. Why is that? And what challenges do these women face themselves?
It's a very interesting conversation, this question. Thanks, Nikki. So right now, actually, if you look at waste management, it is a lot of women who are in the lower end of the waste management chain. As you go higher up and then you start looking at recycling or large scale production, circular economy, there are a lot of men. So what happens is that the majority of the people that we work with are the people who are the front, like the ground team, right? That is mostly women. I think there are a few reasons, if I can just take a minute. One is like when we work with, and we work in smaller towns, villages, and places like that, where women don't have too many opportunities of work, and they have a lot of responsibility at home. They're primary caregivers. They need to be around homes, and these are systemic things, right? But then what also happens because of this is that they don't get to choose any job. They are also not able to like skill themselves to whatever jobs are available. They will have to make some kind of compromise around flexibility, around a job that is easily available for them, very low barrier in getting a job. So in that case, if you look at it, a lot of women in the waste collection and the primary sorting, you can see the percentage of women are very, very high there. But the moment it starts becoming slightly more skilled, then you start seeing a lot more men entering the scene. So I think the challenges here are we need to figure how to make this opportunities more available, and that's one of the main thing that we have seen, and especially jobs available in local spaces so that they can balance the two, because these systemic things we will not be able to solve so fast.
I would like to add too, for the fashion industry, it's very similar, where these the garment workers and people making our clothes and footwear oftentimes are women, and then in the higher positions it's men. And unfortunately, only 2% of garment workers make living wages. So it's I think the most common form of modern day slavery that there is now, in terms of it's just very inequitable for the people that are actually making most of the clothes and shoes. So it's a similar gender issue there.
And how do you in companies? When you go to companies and we ask, show us your organigram, where are the women? They're all secretary. You know, so it's the same. Women are always at the lowest rate, and there's always an excuse to not have them have.
So yeah, I'm curious on your perspectives on what we can do about it, in terms of that. Like, actually, then how can we help? I mean, we're going to talk a bit more about this a bit later, but I know we're doing some work, obviously, all the time, Lakshmi, on trying to create this sort of safe and dignified jobs for women at CleanHub. But how can we sort of empower women to get into those sort of next levels up?
I think we can like take points from all the conversation that was happening, right? Like certain points, like Dr. Audrey was saying about, it's a long-term solution. It's not something that we can, you need to fix something in the short term, but you have to think of the medium and the long term. So in long term, I think we require to create those jobs so it's available. So organizations, brands have the ability of saying, oh, we need to solve plastic pollution, but alongside, what else can they do so that there is more opportunities being created for these women? And that's something that we are working on at CleanHub also, to like slowly start bringing in upskilling projects, but also to figure out how we can create jobs locally. So bring the actual sorting, bring the actual work to the villages, and not really move it to larger cities only. So that's a great way. I also wanted to take a point from what Christina was saying, that we have to like go back to asking why did we start doing this? If we start only thinking about, okay, the plastic pollution is really big in all these big cities, so we will only solve these problems in these big cities. But if we keep asking ourselves, why did we start doing this, then we keep doing the right decisions and rechecking what's the place that we need to really invest in. And I think that like balancing it out so that we are also not losing out and falling off and becoming only focused only on sustainability. We are also focusing on growing and scaling, but always rechecking on the why, always rechecking on how do we integrate these things together and think long term. I think that's a very important thing in systemic changes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, Christina, at Joyasol, you're collaborating with Fair Wage Partners to produce your shoes, right? So can you tell us maybe a bit about how does that work? Like, how do you go about sort of selecting those partners, and how does that work in practice?
Yeah, so that was a big piece of the puzzle when I was forming Joyasol, where that was key. That was important. I think so many times we think about sustainability more as like the planet, but not so much the people aspect. And that was equally important to me. And so I not only wanted to find a country that would produce the highest quality shoes, but also pay living wages, and making sure that they're aligned on those as well. So I did a lot of researching different. I mean, you can manufacture so many different countries, right? And the shoe company I'd worked for before manufactured in Portugal, so I was familiar with their quality. And the more I got talking with developers in the country, the more I realized this sounds like the right fit for me in terms of the quality. And then also the Portuguese government is really aligned in terms of sustainability and having high standards when it comes to paying living wages, versus I think some other countries, are very falling behind there. So it naturally seemed like the right fit for my business. And I have gone there several times now just to ensure that the factories are in compliance, and they have very, very great health benefits, retirement savings, paid time off. They have a lot of vacation. The Europeans like to take like a month off. Is in some ways better than here, I think, in the US. But so that was a key point in figuring that out and making sure that they were aligned before I moved forward.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And on Dr. Audrey as well, I guess when you're talking to companies as well and you're looking at their operations, I guess what advice would you give to brands to be how they should be thinking about their supply chains and sort of making sure that they are sustainable, ethical, those values being met?
It's going, first of all, to depend on the topic. Okay, but now that everybody is responsible to whatever happened in the supply chain, I like to start at the end and look at and go back and voila, and so look at the end, and like you were saying, Christina, look at how the people are paid. If you're doing textile, I would look at, is it possible to produce in a smaller scale by working with people that are skilled and that they will work only for you, for example, because lots of problems can be fixed via the social sustainability. If you look at fast fashion, for example, today, if in the world there were a minimum price to pay everybody, it will fix a lot of the fast fashion, because people that are skilled will use the time that they need to do a shirt or a t-shirt, so that means they will do less. That means that when it arrives to us, it is good quality, we keep it longer. You see? So there are some problem that can be fixed first thinking about social sustainability. For some people there's some people who will look at, a very ancient way of dyeing textile, for example, and that are being lost in the area where they work, and so they want to make sure that it's still taught to the people and also taught to the women that often in those areas are not used for the skill that they can have, so that it is techniques that are not lost, that in fact those techniques are very sustainable and can compete with whatever we're doing today. But sometimes it's really important to see where they are in the world, and also what there we can use to actually enhance their sustainability.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I guess, Lakshmi, obviously, as you've mentioned, then certainly at CleanHub, this is something that's very close to our hearts in terms of upskilling the women to enable them to advance their roles. Maybe you can just give us a couple of examples of how that's working in practice.
Yeah, sure. So I like the latest example that we are now working on is trying to get our women workers on the ground to use technology. So we started like integrating our application, CleanHub application, to use for door-to-door collection. So one of the things that came out of it, data and things like that are different, but what really came out of it is they got really comfortable with using a smartphone every day to their work, which then started giving them additional thing like using digital transaction of the money, because they are going door to door and collecting user fee from houses. So then they don't need to do cash. They can actually do like UPI transactions, which is very popular in India. And that it has a lot of chain reaction, right? Because now that means that all of them know how to deal with digital money transaction, which means they can very easily do that for their personal bank accounts. So previously, so when we work with our women workers, what we ensure is that we make sure that they, one, get the minimum wage, that is like absolute basic, but also to be able that they know their rights, that they know what they are getting, how much they are getting, why they are getting, why is their leaves being cut, or like what are the rights that they have when they're having a full employment, right? And when we do something like that, the more they are aware, the more they are able to understand, okay, so I know I this is my right, so I can question it. So first, like what they should question, that itself is a doubt for them, right? Then once you start questioning it, I think it becomes simpler, because one person raises a voice, then everybody else is also encouraged. So then there is this group that supports each other if they have to voice out. So this digital thing actually had a chain reaction, to the extent like now they are able to do a lot more with their smartphones, because now their smartphones are with them all the time. They don't have to go to the bank and deposit cash and spend a lot of time that they would otherwise spend in just tallying all of the small notes that they get. So this, it's changed the way they deal with their personal finances as well. The other example that we had was, so these are all like, if you look at it, it seems like a small ripple, but it actually, like, it's an effect that happens over a period of time. So when we started off working with one of the projects, we really just started very small by the same thing, like encouraging financial independence. But that over a period of a year, it has reached a point where they have now taken it upon themselves and said that, okay, I have these savings, but what am I really doing about it, right? Let me go and own a piece of property in my name, which is very rare. Like if you're looking at a small village in India, to say that I will own this property and I will register this property in my name, this is my shop and I do business from here, is a very different stand, both for them individually, but also in the family, and then extended to the community. And then the way that they would speak about their achievements to other women around, that itself, you don't need to do that anymore. You've created a change maker in that person, who's now able to like say that, okay, take me to the other village, I will teach them how to do this. So it's to say we would have worked a little bit with few people, but that itself can create such a huge impact. So I think these are like a few examples that we can talk about how we as CleanHub have worked with the women on ground.
Yeah, I think it's such an important point, and it goes back actually to what we were talking about earlier, even in terms of what companies should be doing. It's like there's a great comment here from Sam Fallon to in response to your statement, Christine, but to saying you don't have to do everything in order to do something, and the same thing with brands being afraid to start. Actually, just doing something, the ripple effect that can come from these things, it can go much further than we'd even imagine. And so the key thing is to get started, right? And to get these, you change one life and then it changes many. I'd like to sort of lift it now. I mean, actually, we've been talking, so then looking actually at the front lines, but actually then lifting it right up and just thinking about gender balance in policy. And Dr. Audrey, you're as president of Brussels Binders, that's a resource for improving gender balance in policy debates. I'm really curious, what are you seeing at the policy level in terms of gender balance?
Yeah. So basically, if you looked at all the policy debates in Europe, and in Brussels, but in Europe it's the same. On 100 speakers, you will have 68 white men. You will have only 30 white women, and you will have one is a non-white woman and 3 white men, something like this. And 3 black men, sorry. So that's, the diversity is bad. But the thing is that when you ask the question, how is it? And they will tell you, we don't know where to find qualified people that are not like us. That's the answer. So basically, the Brussels Binder is a database of women experts to say that we are everywhere. Whatever is the topic, there is a woman qualified for it. So this is not an answer. But what we've seen is that there's still today in 2024 policy debate with only men. Okay? Really. A couple of months ago, we had a roundtable about menopause. Not a single woman was there. And I'm not kidding.
I mean, I should have
No. And sometimes, and when you call them out, they're not happy. So it's still a challenge to have the diversity of table. Now they are called out, so they think about it, and we try to give toolkits and to tell people how they have to change. And so the big concern that they have is often, we don't know, we don't have a qualified woman or something like this. And so the thing is to tell the speakers that go to say, your panel is not diverse, next time I'm not coming. And two, the most important, give someone that is different than you, that the person can invite next time. So that the people will make also their list of speakers that have been recommended as speakers that already invited. And that is quite powerful, because basically the event organizer, they always go to the same network. They always ask the same people, because looking, bigger, it's work, and we're human, and we like to have minimum effort. So that's the big problem. But today we still have 24% of panel that are only men. And the diversity, if I talk only about visible diversity, and in Europe you have 52% of women, you have 15% of non-white, and you have 25% of people who have a disability, that is absolutely not representative at all. So still work to do.
A lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. And so before we kind of go on to actually, we all acknowledge empowered women are fundamental to a better future for all of us. So what we can do to get more empowered women there. One last question, I guess, on this topic, Dr. Audrey, is also something we've talked about before, is the link between social washing and greenwashing. Yeah. So actually, companies saying that they've got more diversity than they have, etc.
Exactly. And in fact, and that's why also I'm very, very, for me, it's very important that people realize that you don't do environmental sustainability without social sustainability, because when you do greenwashing, you also do social washing. Simple. You do both, you see. So it's like a company will tell you, I'm going to produce that line in whatever country because I care about people who are homosexual and we have to care for them, and they produce in a country where homosexuals are killed, and at the board there's none. You see, so that doesn't make sense. But what happened today is that now there is in Europe at least a regulation that people are now put accountable to not do greenwashing, and the consumer is more and more aware. So the consumer call out, and that is also very powerful. And it's if there is a message, is to tell people that they have a power. Good lobbying exists. Lots of things that happen because people have lobbied, and don't wait for government to do things, because the government is reactive. It reacts to us not being happy about something and lobbying about it.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And as you say, hopefully then this new regulation that's coming in, we're going to see the knock-on effect of that in
exactly.
many positive ways. Okay, so we sort of, I think, all acknowledge that actually, yes, there is still a lack of women in leadership positions at some of the big brands, and obviously there's the positive impact if we can address this. I'm curious on each of you in terms of what you think the biggest barriers are to getting more women into leadership positions, and or any challenges you've faced personally in your careers and how you've overcome those. I don't know who wants to go first on that. Audrey?
Okay, so for me, because often people talk about imposter syndrome or whatsoever, I don't believe in that. For me, women don't reach the top level because when you are in a company, at least, and you have a sponsor, you're lucky, someone wants you to go. You have someone inside the company that advocates for you. When you advocate for a man, at the top will say, okay, you can go and try. When it's a woman, she has to prove first that she can do it before she can be even considered. So it's really two ways of seeing the thing. And it's what's happening today. So to make it better, you need to have one woman up, to countercard that. But it's because there is a different way of treating men and women. Us, we have to prove that we can do it before we are considered, while a man is just considered. You see? And that is a big difference.
And Christina, what's been your experience in your career with this? And
Yeah, I agree with what Dr. Audrey is saying, and I think women tend to have more of this imposter syndrome maybe than men. Maybe I'm making a generalization, but maybe we tend to doubt our own abilities and maybe don't speak up or are not as confident maybe in the room as if we go into a room with a group of men. And I think women too, we do care a lot about these issues, and I think maybe sometimes so much, even maybe more than men, but maybe we just don't know or how to get there, or maybe what the opportunities could be. And I think just not being afraid to speak up, to not feel like an imposter and that you are worthy, and to kind of build that inner self-confidence and self-esteem, I think. And then helping other women join your movement or join whatever it is you're trying to do, bringing them in. As I was studying about climate change, I hosted an event at my house with a bunch of other women, and they said, "Oh, wow, like this is really important to me." And I think they just need to be brought to the table and to understand how they can make a difference, and making them feel valued and that their opinions matter. And so bringing people in that may have a slight interest and helping them, educate them and uplifting them as well.
Yeah, I completely agree on all of those points. Lakshmi, what about you? What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I'm just like amazed at how across the world the problems are very similar. So when I was working in like my previous job, I was working very closely with the local government, and I would go for all these sessions, which are filled with, I think, 50, 60 men who are like all in big authoritative positions, and really would not even like hear you, right? Your voice is just like, even if you scream on top of your lungs, I don't think anybody will even like consider you worthy enough to talk in that room. And those are the kind of like, if you are in those rooms for few times, I think anybody will be demotivated enough to say that, okay, I'll just write an email or something. I don't have this courage to keep fighting this thing. So I guess what really changed when I came to CleanHub and I started working with the women here, what I realized is it's like decision making is like a muscle. We have to keep like exercising it and making it stronger. And every time we create an opportunity for very small decision making that is affecting your life, it just seems like you become a little bit more stronger in making that decision. And then over a period of time, you start, without even you noticing, you're slightly more stronger in making those decisions. And I feel that that's a good way of looking at like over a period of time, how can we get women to become more decision making, more loud in voices. I used to also find this Zoom as a platform would not pick up my voice. And I would think, why is this software being so like biased to my voice maybe? But I guess I also stopped fighting this need for being loud like a man. And it's just saying that, okay, I mean, I will say the same thing 10 times, and I'm like, one of the 10 times I will be hurt, and that's good enough, rather than like really changing. And it's like this thing that we were just talking about, by saying that we are trying to do sustainability in a very capitalistic society. It's like that, like you're trying to create your own space in a fully masculine led society. So I think we have to find our own ways, but I think this giving more opportunities for women to make decisions in smaller ways so that they can keep growing it and building confidence, I think has helped quite a bit.
The confidence issue, I mean, that's a whole LinkedIn Live in itself on another day, another topic, but the imposter syndrome and the confidence issue is something, again, that you sort of hear a lot. And yeah, I'd love to dig into and understand the psychology of that one day, of why that is different in the genders. But I think that's definitely true. In terms of then what we can all do, and actually, look, I think we're certainly very lucky at CleanHub, and I'm sure we've all got some really fantastic male colleagues and role models around us as well who are very supportive. But I think what actually companies can be doing and communities doing at the grassroots to help amplify women's voices better, actually acknowledging that this is an issue. There are some challenges here. We do need to do this. So Christina, for your example, like, how would you sort of think about that at a company level?
Yes. So So I am personally a part of this group called Remake, and they're a global advocacy group where they're climate activists and fighting for more sustainable fashion industry and also fair wages around the world. And so this is a group that I'm a part of, and that also my company gives back to, where it's pretty much, I mean, a women's issue, and then it's also fighting for helping uplift people out of poverty. And this is just in the fashion industry, but I think there must be organizations in probably every sector that are more like gender women focused. And so trying to find groups that resonate with you and your values and joining those communities and kind of coming together and seeing what you can do, locally or at a more state or national level, and then or globally. So I think it's about finding your communities and coming together and amplifying those voices.
Yeah, for sure. Dr. Audrey, what's your perspective on this in terms of how we can all do better?
So I completely agree with finding your communities within companies.
Oh, we'll come back. In the meantime, Lakshmi, what's your perspective just on the communities, actually, specifically as well? How do we help amplify the women's voices in the community level and get those heard more globally?
Oh, I think we are doing quite a good job of trying to bring out the stories from the ground, and I've seen a very positive change because of that. When we bring out the stories of the women on the ground as their own voice, like it's not like a narrated piece, right? It's their own story that they are saying in their own voice, and when they see it being shared in the world, and the responses that they get, it really emphasizes for themselves that yeah, what they're doing is great, and so many people are really agreeing to what they're saying, and that just boosts the way they think about themselves, one about the work and about their role to share this joy. And I think that's been quite nice in the way we are sharing stories from the ground. I think the voices from the ground should be heard by them, I mean spoken by them, and that makes a difference.
I agree. And I think the power of film and storytelling is so powerful in sharing that and really connecting on a more personal level. Like, these are real people. These are, women just like you and I, but, and these are the things that they're facing. And I think that really helps bring it to life to people.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I think, there can be a lot of challenges with social media and sort of negative side of it, but actually this is where social media can really come into its own and help us to tell the stories and amplify the good and the positive out there as well, right? So Dr. Audrey, yes, just your perspective on what companies and we can be doing generally in communities.
So it's to really include men. So in companies, I will go to the top, and during meeting having an observer, who can tell the decision maker what happens. Oh, this woman was saying that, but you didn't hear it. But when it was the man who repeated it, you heard it. That's weird. We can actually tell the person, because sometimes they don't even realize they're so used to it that they don't even realize, so that they can actually reflect. So having this kind of reverse mentoring. But I believe more and more that we need to include men and put them in front of their contradiction. For example, in your own company, and that this discussion are made about promotion at the evening at 6 p.m. While if all the women have to go because it's still women to pick up their kids. And when I ask them, but where are your kids? They're like, at home. Where is your wife? At home. So how do you want that the women in your company who are expats, who don't have any families, go up, And sometimes they just don't think about it. And so it's things to tune within companies sometimes to at least have some change. But they have to be put in front of their contradiction, because you will be surprised how many times they don't even realize.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm just conscious of time, and I would like just to leave a little bit of time for questions at the end as well. So certainly, one of the key sort of takeaways for me on this is, with all things, representation is key, right? We acknowledge we need much more gender balance. One thing that is very good in the sort of space of sustainability, climate change, is that actually some of the most visible climate activists of this generation are actually women. Greta Thunberg, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jacinda Ardern. I'm really keen from each of you just to know actually which female role models inspire you. Female and male as well, actually, because, you know, this is about gender balance, but particularly any female role models. Christina, maybe you could start us off.
I think, you know, on a more global level, you've mentioned Greta, and I definitely look up to her and young people that are leading these movements. You know, I have personal role models that within my studies in sustainability that I kind of look up to, and I still look to as a mentor. So I'm, you know, they're not like a nationally known name, but I think, or internationally known name, but I think finding role models maybe or community members within your own area, and then also looking towards these larger figures in around the world can be helpful in terms of you know, what's realistic and things you can strive towards.
Yeah, great. And Dr. Audrey?
Yeah, I have two. As a chemist, is Alicia Bell. She found the remedy for leprosy using analytical chemist technique, and it's probably her who made me want to be a chemist, analytical chemist. And on the sustainability side, I had to give the name of the first Black woman on sustainability who had a Nobel Prize. I think it's Volga Himatai. Because what I liked is that she got it for environmental and social sustainability, in fact. And
very nice.
I think it's very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Lakshmi?
Oh, I would like to mention here my previous organization, Hasirudala. It was an organization that worked with informal waste workers. The founder and executive director, Nalini Shekhar, she's been working with the informal workers, but I think also the trying to bring in the balance of how do you create policy level changes along with inclusive solutions. It's a tough thing, and I see that she's multiple times struggling, and then you always like you that 2 steps front and 3 steps back kind of thing, but to just keep that rigor is quite something.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, look, thank you all very much. I'd like to open up to questions. If anybody in the audience has any questions for any of our speakers, then now is your chance. Just give things a minute. Maybe I can kick us off with one. Oh, no, we've got one already, I think. Just bear with me. Okay, this is a good one. How can we consciously use discourse to encourage equality from an earlier age? So I guess this is about actually, yes, the sort of education, and then with children and younger adults, and then how we can sort of drive that to change perspectives here. Christina, you said yourself that your children had influenced your decision. How can we help educate them?
I think getting them involved, you know, I think there's community groups that from a young age you can start to introduce. I remember when I was studying about sustainability and the plastic pollution, my son was like maybe 2 years old, and we would go to the beach and he's like, plastic on the beach, it's bad. Or so it's like you can start to introduce these concepts really early on, you know, even when they're 2-3 years old, and then taking them to community beach cleanups, things that, you know, seem it's tangible, they can understand, and getting books that are children's books. There's lots of great children's books about these topics that kind of help break it down and why it matters, and including, you know, boys and girls in the conversation, and making it fun too, making it so it's interesting and they enjoy it.
And Lakshmi, I guess also it's sort of linked, I mean, with the educational workshops that we're doing at CleanHub as well. Of course, that's focused on sustainability, but there's also an opportunity there, isn't there?
Yeah.
To talk about the gender piece.
Yeah, when we're working with children, especially in the coastal villages, it's the problem of waste is so much part of their lives that it's almost like you don't see rocks, you don't see plastic, that kind of acceptance of this is what it is. But then how do we then create this change in their mind that this is possible, there is a solution out there, and these are the things that people are doing, and to really bring them to out of this climate change gloom, right, that the youngsters today will feel, because all the problems that we are creating, and they will have to suffer. They have to get out of that and look at it in a more hopeful way. I think that really changes the way they accept the new ways, because their lives are going to be so much different from how we lived our childhood. So
Yeah,
so I
Definitely.
absolutely.
giving
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
I go to school. I go to school every trimester. From start at 6 years old to teach what is climate change, from the human activities to climate migrants. Voilà, all the link in between, and also to help them design their life low carbon. So I would say in Belgium there are 9 gigatons CO2 per year. They should be at 3, and it's an activity so that they realize what does it mean to live at 2 or 3 gigatons CO2 per year, and is it possible? And they design their life low carbon, and I do that in school. Well, between 6 and 10 years old.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. And actually, maybe this is another one for you, Dr. Audrey. And actually, I'd quite like to get everyone's perspectives on this, actually. But we have one here, a question. Thank you, Amanda. How do you stay motivated and optimistic in sustainability, given how overwhelming it is sometimes? Audrey.
It starts with yourself. Yeah, it starts with yourself. You have to take care of yourself to be able to save the world. So I have a good, supportive system, let's say. And I try to have always positive communication about sustainability and tell people that it's not losing something. It's just changing is not always losing someone, sometimes it's gaining. And I'm pretty positive. People want to change, they just don't know how most of the time. And so it's a marathon. We know it's a marathon, and just convince everybody that all action that we do are not additional, they are exponential. So if you have more and more people, the action are really multiply. Voilà. And if you believe the theory of change, you just need to change 12% of the world. So it's not that much. And then everybody's going to follow. So
it sounds doable like that. Yeah, for sure. And what about you, Christina?
I agree with what she's saying. Take care of yourself. And it's easy to get depressed at the headlines and want to curl up into a ball and think, oh, we're all doomed. And what kind of world? I don't want to bring children into this world. But it's like, you can't think like that. You have to think more positive and, look at how far we've come as human beings, and the ability to innovate and adapt, and so have faith in the human ingenuity, and not give up. I think there's no use in just being, just depressed about these issues. I think if it matters to you, taking action is more important. And it's not to say, I think it's good to be informed about these issues, but not to get paralyzed about it, and to not give up faith and hope, and do what brings you joy, and don't forget that life is precious, and we must I think live each day with joy, and help us get through these tougher issues.
Yeah, very very good answer. And what about you, Lakshmi? How do you stay positive?
I guess I've met enough people who are in this journey trying to create all these positive changes, fighting against all the big systemic problems. I think like on an everyday basis, you meet so many people that you feel that the problems are big, and there are many, many big problems. But I think this is something that slowly and steadily we'll keep fighting. But I think more than fighting, like to what Christina, I agree that we should stay positive and find the joy in whatever we are doing, right? Because there are so many people who are doing this, and in every small town, city, village, there are people doing this. So we're just one of them.
Very true. And one last question just to finish on. We've just got a couple of minutes left, but any advice on using our voices to call out inequality in the workplace or in our personal lives when it can feel intimidating? Any views on that, on sort of just basically about how we can use our voices better to call things out? Audrey?
It's a very good question. I'm doing it in a very cold way. I will go with I'll take a data that supports the contrary of what I see. Okay, and so I would say the data says that, and data. So how is it that is happening? For example, data shows that when you have 30% of women in executive board, the profit increase of 60%. How is it that you have none? Voilà, I will go it in the cold way, meaning there is proof that you're wrong. So why aren't you changing? Voilà, these kind of things.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, data, having data to back these things up, I think, is definitely helpful. And what about you, Lakshmi? What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say that it's been quite a training to tell myself to, like, adding to being silent could also be adding to this inequality. So, like, what's the role in, like, that you're playing in doing that? I think it's coming a little bit from my grandmom, who kept saying this time and again, and in my and much older in my life, it's coming back to me. I also think that there is a lot to what I'm learning from being in this field, is that a lot of this is also happening because there's lack of awareness, like how we said sometime back. A lot of things that when we face inequality in workplace, and if it is because of, say, some other co-worker, who's not really understanding the situation, right? And then how do you also just bring that up, because sometimes it could just mean only that. And if we are we are looking at the inequality only and focusing on that, but not really understanding that there's a lack of education here, and maybe that would help.
For sure. Well, look, thank you all very much. I feel like we could have carried on this conversation for a lot longer, but really, you've been fantastic guests. Thank you, and thank you to everybody that's been listening. We're all, I think there's a lot to be positive about, and so yeah, onwards. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so
very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.